Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Another suspicious package has been discovered this morning. This time it's addressed to Senator Cory Booker. Authorities now believe several of the 11 packages went through a postal facility in the city of Opa-locka.
Investigators are also trying to determine if the devices were poorly made or just meant to scare people. Whatever the case, political and spiritual leaders are calling for civility. Mark Martin reports.
Investigators across the country are following up on clues to solve this crime spree that's captured the attention of the nation.
I can say with certainty that we will identify and arrest a person or people responsible for these acts. Make no mistake.
Federal officials are now tracking a lead in South Florida near Miami. ABC News reports investigators believe some of the suspicious packages went through a mail facility there, and all of them funneled through the U.S. Postal Service.
We have over 600,000 postal employees out there right now, so we have their eyes and ears looking for these packages.
Meanwhile, authorities are examining the devices at the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia. Were they meant to explode, or was the goal only to spread fear? New York leaders declined to comment.
I'm not going to talk about intent, but, if you were the bomb squad detective, how would you treat it?
Law enforcement officers discovered several more packages Thursday, the latest addressed to actor Robert De Niro and former Vice President Joe Biden. That brings the total to 10.
This division, this hatred, this ugliness, it has to end.
Leaders on both sides of the political aisle agree. General Jerry Boykin of the Family Research Council in Washington is also calling for civility. In 2012, a gunman attacked FRC, injuring one person because it had been labeled a hate group for its stand supporting biblical marriage.
When we choose violence over dialogue in political discourse, it's a sad day in America, and I think that this has got to be rebuked, rebuffed, rejected, all types of violence today. Not just sending bombs to somebody. I think this bomb maker is probably a one-off lunatic.
And he has a message for those who are using violence and threats to divide Americans.
Stop what you are doing, whether it's harassing people in a restaurant or on a street, or sending bombs to people, or threatening people. Stop it. Stop it right now. And let's take a step back and let's see what we have to do to get back to being able to discuss our differences.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
Well, a hearty amen to that. Let's step back and see what we can do to discuss our differences. But in the current political climate, it always seems to ratchet up. And in that ratcheting up, you're going to see extremes like this. And whether it's a rifleman taking on Republican congressmen at a baseball field or pipe bombs being delivered through the mail, we've got to stop this. And it's high time for civility. Well, in other news, the Trump administration is seeking to undo Obama-era policies promoting transgender rights. Ephraim Graham has that story from our CBN newsroom.
Gordon, the Department of Health and Human Services is reportedly seeking to narrow the definition of gender to male or female at birth, and it's drawing some strong reactions. Charlene Aaron has the story.
The Trump administration is seeking to define gender as the biological condition determined at birth as either male or female. Conservatives praise the move.
For the Trump administration to stand firm to say that sex-based discrimination really is only gender-based, biologically male and female, is not only consistent with science, but it's consistent with the traditional definition that we've had as a country and understood as a country throughout our history.
A report in the New York Times cites a Department of Health and Human Services memo seeking to establish a legal definition of gender under Title IX. That's the civil rights law that bans discrimination on the basis of sex. HHS is proposing a person's gender be defined by the genitalia they're born with and can't be changed. LGBT activists are furious, calling it an attack on transgender Americans.
Making clear that we will not stand to see the human rights of transgender people erased by this administration from federal law. We have seen so many attacks by the Trump-Pence administration against transgender people, and it is not okay.
The Obama administration loosened the legal concept of gender, recognizing it as an individual choice and not one determined at birth. That created legal and moral challenges concerning transgender access to bathrooms, dormitories, and single-sex programs that were once defined strictly by male or female.
There are sexual predators out there that will take advantage of this. The reason why we keep males and females separated is to prevent problems. But now you're saying, oh no, there's no problem.
Many see the proposed new definition as restoring reason and common sense in the face of a wave of social change generated by a vocal minority.
For the LGBT community to attempt, again, to try to create certain rights that are not present within sex-based discrimination. They're attempting to draw a distinctly protected class that really should not properly or scientifically or biologically fall under the definition of sex-based discrimination.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And this week, the Department of Justice filed a legal brief with the Supreme Court arguing the definition of sex in the context of federal discrimination laws is based on biological markers, not how a person identifies his or her gender. The remnants of Tropical Storm Willa are heading for the East Coast, bringing heavy rain and winds up to 50 miles an hour. Coastal flooding is also expected. Meteorologists say as the storm system moves north, it will affect areas still recovering from recent hurricanes. That includes the Florida Panhandle and up into Wilmington, North Carolina. This is the first nor'easter of the season. Willa struck the Pacific coast of Mexico earlier this week as a Category 3 hurricane. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis is expected to sign an order sending 800 or more troops to the southern border. This comes after President Trump says he is bringing out the military to address what he calls a national emergency at the border. A caravan of some 5,000 migrants is moving through Mexico and headed for the United States. Additional troops will provide logistical support to Border Patrol agents, including vehicles, tents, and equipment. There are about 2,000 National Guard troops already at the border. Earlier this year, Guatemala became the second country after the United States to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. CBN News was on hand as Guatemala's new ambassador to Israel met with President Rivlin this week. And as Chris Mitchell reports, the ambassador has a special tie to CBN.
It began with pomp and circumstance and Guatemala's national anthem. Then Ambassador Mario Bucaro presented his diplomatic credentials to Israel's President Reuven Rivlin. Rivlin noted the long friendship between Guatemala and Israel.
As we all know, Guatemala is one of the oldest friends of Israel. Now, as you have said, we have the embassy of Guatemala here in Jerusalem.
We're friends for forever, I would say, because since the border of the state of Israel, Guatemala has been a friend, but you have been also friends always. My mission and the orders that I have received from the president is that we can strengthen even more our relationship.
The ceremony ended when President Rivlin invited Ambassador Bucaro to sign the president's guest book. Later, Ambassador Bucaro and his wife were guests of honors at a reception hosted by Mike Evans and the Friends of Zion Museum. Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister Zippy Hotaveli came to greet the ambassador, as well as ambassadors from most of Central America.
I feel blessed with a great responsibility, but I'm very happy. It's an amazing time being in Israel. It's such a privilege because since I was a child, you know, my mom used to sing me a song that one day I will be in Jerusalem, and today I'm here and I'm going to be able to honor that.
We have vast majority of the ambassadors from Central America here. And what are we talking about? We're talking about God blessing their countries, God blessing them. And it's an amazing thing. It's part of prophecy.
Before his posting as Guatemala's ambassador, Bucaro served as CBN's regional director for Latin America.
I just want to thank all the audience of CBN and especially the donors of CBN, because for almost 10 years I have been part of this family. I continue to be families of CBN. Thanks Gordon Robertson and Pat Robertson for their vision, their example. And I'm here to be able to also to tell the world the love that I have for Christ based on their example too. And the best is yet to come.
And what did Bucaro write in the president's guest book?
Ineni, here I am, here in Jerusalem. I'm here to serve Guatemala and to serve Israel.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
CBN, a training ground for ambassadors, Gordon.
Well, it's congratulations, Mario. I remember 10 years ago going to your law firm, and I know this. Mario was the managing director for one of the most successful law firms in Guatemala City, and he was a man of some influence there. And I asked him to lay all that aside and come on board and be our director for Latin America, and he said yes. He left behind that career in order to serve the Lord. And now he's leaving CBN to be an ambassador to Israel, and what a wonderful service he's taking there. So congratulations. It's really heartwarming for me personally to see that happen to him. So it's great.